Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is kind of ironic now because I'm speaking at the very end after everybody was spoken about all the business ideas and business ownership and land ownership and how houses, Greg, is not an asset. I knew that. House is a liability, right? And now you ask me to come and speak about it. You understand me? But I share this with you because I sat here and I remember some of those who were speaking. I said, I'm going to switch my conversation. Because you look at me and you say, I'm a contractor. But a lot of places don't see contractors as business owners. And I tell people all the time, before I'm a contractor, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. And so because I'm a contractor doesn't mean that I don't see different opportunities in different places, because I do. And Greg spoke to it before. Greg, I've known Greg for a number of years. Greg sat in my office when I first got into this business and so forth. But one of the things that, and I will share it with you because I realize that most of you in here are thinking about entrepreneurship and what that represents. I've been an entrepreneur from my early 20s. And yes, I have worked in corporate Bahamas. Yes, I've been in place. I've purchased land in places. I'll tell you this much. I bought land in high-end places. Somebody asked about buying land in high-end places that was able to help with your ability to gain more wealth. But I tell you one thing I also found out, that those land and high-end places I purchased cost me because every month I got to pay fees. So I got land in places that I'm not using, and I'm paying fees on because of where they're located. And I'm just giving you that's just a heads up. I did this. I've been doing this buying land for years, since I bought land years ago. That has good wealth to it, but it's costing me today. But I'm not here to talk about. I also have sons.
Oh, good.
Just so you'll know. But I'm here today to talk to you about not about entrepreneurship. I'm here to talk to you about home ownership. Anybody own their own homes? How many own your own homes? Okay. I mean, the rest of you are looking to own homes, right? And we talk about this all the time. I can tell you, I started early in terms of home ownership. And one of the things I thought about early on was that it was not what everybody else was saying. I've read the books. I've read the books from Robert Kiyosaki and all those things. I read books every month. And so that's because of my entrepreneurial spirit. I read books every month. I want to know more. I train and develop as much as I can. But one of the things I did early on was when I bought land, I bought a home. I thought about what that home can do for me and my family. But not only that, I also used my home. I used the equity of my home to also purchase a lot of land. And that helped, which is different from what a lot of things you'll be hearing. But I know what it did for me because it helped me to benefit. But home ownership is perhaps one of the greatest investments that an individual make on their own. But it's also one of the biggest opportunities because it becomes a cornerstone. Ms. Ferguson talked about the fact that the land or the home ownership opportunity the need for persons to have homes is just overbearing here in the Bahamas. One of the things I'm going to talk to you about is about how do you get to the place of home ownership. We talk about planning in business, whatever you do, we talk about planning. So the first thing you got to do if you're going to own anything, if you're going to do anything, you've got to first plan. It doesn't make sense we talk about all the dreams we have and everything else, but Lois talked about it earlier. I talk about the fact that you can have vision and ideas and so forth. And I always tell people, before you do anything, write it down. Writing it down is your way of planning. You got to prepare for the way you want to go. You've got to make sure that you're ready to go there. And so planning is the first thing. So when you talk about home ownership, we talk about planning. We talk about making sure that we're going to get to the place where we need to go. We've heard that the banks are not always lending and so forth and so on. But one of the things I find that people do when they look at owning homes, first thing they do is they say, okay, I want a home. And then they say, they go out and they'll get a plan drawn for the home they want. and they don't even know what they qualify for yet, right? I've had persons who had plans drawn. I had a client of mine and a good friend of mine who had a plan drawn for a home, and when he brought the plans to me, I asked how much he was prepared to spend. When he told me the budget, when I look at the plan, it just couldn't happen. We had to go back and have the architect redesign the plan for the home. So people will go and look at what they want without considering what they can afford. We've got persons who are looking for land, for example. They think about where they want to live without knowing exactly what that is going to cost them to live there. I can tell you, because a lot of things that are happening out there are persons who are buying land in areas that look good, right? But they can't afford to stay in those areas because of what it costs to stay. I know because I lived it. I'm not telling you something I heard about. I'm telling you what I've lived, right? So in home ownership, you've got to be planning. You've got to know, for example, first of all, how much do I qualify for if I'm going to go through the bank? And I know a lot of you guys don't need to go through the bank because the money is there already. That's fine, right? But you need to know what you qualify for or what you're prepared to spend before you do anything, right? So you got to sit down and you have to plan that out. The second thing you need to know is once I qualify, okay, what is it that I really want? What do I really want to do? I tell persons all the time, especially, I shouldn't say this, but especially my female clients, right? When we get to the point where we're talking about negotiating the contract and so forth, or we're starting to build, I tell them you have to cut off HGTV, right? Because there are a lot of ideas about what I want and everything else. But remember, there's still only a budget, right? So when you start to plan, you have to think about all the things that you're going to fit into what you want. So planning now involves, okay, how much do I qualify for? Okay, I know what I qualify for. I got to see Ms. Ferguson to find out now what's available to me if I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy or I'm going to build. That's your option. And so if I'm going to buy, I need to know if I'm going to buy then, where I'm going to buy. Again, the same question comes back, what I qualify for. What area you're going to buy in, what type of home you're looking for, whether you're going to have a rental income home or just a private dwelling for yourself. You have to look at those things, so planning is very critical. But once you would have gotten out of that, now you've got to start to budget. We do something in construction called value engineering. Because a lot of times I have persons who come in, they say, I got a small budget. I say, okay. But on the small budget, they want big things. You know? I say, okay, so what are we working with? I got a budget for $200,000. But I want a home that's 2,500 square feet. I want 10-foot ceilings. I want real wood cabinetry. I want baseboards and crown molding, and they want a pool in the backyard with a pool house. And, you know, say, okay, I know what you want. Now let's get real about what you can afford, right? And sometimes you realize the person say, I want a home, but I want it to be built in this particular fashion. No problem. The budget remains the same, right? But you can determine where you're going to put more of your effort, right? So when you talk about budgeting, you have to sit down. If you're married, you sit down with your spouse. You decide to sit down with your contractor or your architect and determine what it is that I'm going to do to get to where I need to be. Home ownership is not easy. Home ownership is not cheap. I tell people all the time, I spend the first part of my young life preparing to buy a home. I'm spending the last part of my adult life trying to keep it, right? Because maintaining of a home is very important. As a matter of fact, if you fail to maintain the home that you have, you can lose it on that, right? So it's important that you start to think about what it is you're going to do and how far it's going to go. Most persons who go to buy a home today, this is what they do. They go to the bank and they sit down with a loan officer who says you qualify for $200,000, for example. And they go, yay. And they get a plan drawn and they find the land or whatever, everything. They go to a tractor. I got $200,000 I'm qualified for. I want to build a home. It's all good and fine. The problem is that Ferguson said, oh, they are home stretched. They took everything they have, maxed out to that home, and then they cannot live, right? So that's why I say budgeting is so critical. A lady came to me and she said to me the other day, she said, Rodney, we just got our home, but I can't move. I'm struggling. We are struggling to get to the place where we can survive. And I said, look, let's look at and understand that I'm a contractor, but I came from a background in systems, computer systems. I came from a background of banking. I understand all of that aspects. When my clients come to sit with me, I'm not just talking to them about home construction. I'm talking to them about how to survive after the construction. So I had to sit with those persons to tell them, this is what you need to now consider, because when you max out your budget on a home, you can find yourself in trouble because you would not be able to move through. Home ownership to me, it's a great opportunity. So when we start talking about home ownership, we got to start looking at some things that need to happen, right? We've got to, like I said, plan, right? That means preparing yourself to make things happen. We got to be budgeting. A part of budgeting too is knowing what you need to get qualified. That's what it is, and then preparing for it, right? And it may mean, yes, if you're working on a job, and I've been on the job, I've been making good money on the job, and people ask me all the time, why did you get out? Because like everybody else was saying, I was taught, this is what you do. You go ahead and get a good education. Well, I did that. I got a master's degree and working on another one, but wasn't good enough for me. To get a good job, I had that. That wasn't good enough for me. I had a passion for something else. I had a passion for something else. And what I wanted to do differently didn't involve working for somebody else. I love home ownership. I love building because I love not only building homes, I love building people's dreams, right? I like to see it come forward, and I try to help people with that. So when we start to talk about home ownership, we got to start thinking about what it takes to own a home. It's not something that just happens. A lot of times people go and get homes because they saw somebody else got it. And they go into areas that they think that they want to be because somebody else is there, without considering all aspects of it. I wish that some of the information I have today, I had 20 years ago, because I would have done some things differently. But notwithstanding that, because I have the information today, I start to share that with persons. Because if I can share with you some of the things I've experienced, then I can help you to get to a place quicker than I got to it. Right? So when we start talking about home ownership and what it takes, it really takes time to sit and look at what you want to do and then to start to prepare that. When we start to look at the home, even if we get to the place where you say, okay, I've already got my money ready, I've gone to the bank, I'm qualified, I got a plan drawn, I'm sitting with a contractor. Say for example, you come to UCD and say, okay, we want you to build a home. Okay, that's good and fine. One of the things you got to also realize that you got to be practical, because the contractor can't make miracles happen, right? He still only has a budget. And I tell people all the time, I cannot change the cost associated with the material that you're going to get. I do procurement as well. I bring a lot of stuff in, but I can't change the cost of material. I can very hardly affect the cost of labor, because that's one of the things that's there. And in the construction industry, there's so much that's lost in labor. And that's why a part of what we do is we do a lot of management of things. And that's when we talk about scheduling and so forth. We talk about that, making sure our jobs are scheduled a certain way. But in that process, you've got to have the kind of relationship with the contractor that allows you to say, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going to go. And then to maintain that relationship throughout the course of that construction, or the period of that construction. It's not something that you can go into with your eyes closed. The more a client is involved in the process of construction, the easier it is for them and the contractor. So the first thing I try to do with my clients is when we sit down is we try to make certain that there's a relationship that we build, right? A lot of my clients, even to this day, no matter how long we would build their homes, when things need to happen around the home, they call. They still look out. If one of my clients the other day he called me and said, listen, I need my pool deck cleaned down. We built the home, we built the pool and everything else. I said, no problem. We go and take a look at it. Because we've developed relationship, when things happen, they continue to call back. And so I'm saying this to you so you can understand and appreciate that when you start to look at home construction, you've got to look at the contractor who's going to be involved and the kind of relationship that you're going to establish. Most persons, when they do home ownership, are looking for home ownership, and they're looking for a contractor. The first thing they look for is, I got a budget, the bank has given me now approval for this money, and now I got to find a contractor to fit into this, right? And so you got a home that you want to build, and you say, okay, I want to build this home, and so you look for the contractor with the lowest bid, right? You're looking for the lowest bid, and that doesn't always work out, because the lowest bid does not necessarily mean the most efficient individual, right? And so if you're looking for a contractor to build a home, one, again, the trust relation first, and then you got to know that they got the experience to do the job that you need done, because you may have a special project, but you need to know they have the experience to do what you need done. And then also, thirdly, make sure you get some references, right? Get some references. Find out their license, and nowadays you got to be VAT compliant and all of that, right? But you got to make sure you get some references. And if they're on a construction site right now, if they're doing a project right now, you need to go and see what's happening on the job, right? So the references, and you don't just get a reference, you follow up with the reference to see and make certain that that reference is something that you can rely on and what they're saying makes sense. And like I say, go and, if you get a chance to go and check it out, go and check out the job. See what they're doing. If they're doing something that you like, and then you can work from that aspect. So yes, you need to get references. And then you also need to know that once you involve with that contractor is somebody that you can allow to go and do what you want done. The rule of thumb for me is trust your gut. Yep. Trust your gut. Somebody said this. He said, if the person you're negotiating with, you decide if they were selling a used car, you wouldn't buy the car from them, don't let them build your house. Right? If you can't trust that person, if you wouldn't trust that person to sell your used car, don't trust them to build your house. So you got to have the kind of trust so you can build that in. The Bible says this, and I say the Bible because I'm a man of faith. It says that before a man decides to build a home, he must count the cost. In other words, it doesn't make sense making up your mind to go and build a home or buy a home if you have not considered all the costs associated with that. Because cost is critical to survival. We always talk about multiple streams of income, and yes, I agree. And for those of you who are looking at home ownership today, it may not necessarily be a private dwelling for you and your family. It may be that you are looking for something that's going to bring you income. There may be, for you, maybe looking to invest in something that you can use on Airbnb, which is an incredible opportunity, especially now. And home ownership does not necessarily have to just be in Nassau. So when you start to look at what you're going to do, you have to start to think now, especially now. I mean, I don't see anybody here under 20, right? So you're thinking about, yeah, I know, I understand, right? I understand. But we have to start to think about how we're going to maximize the use of what we have. And I still believe that home ownership is a great opportunity for a lot of persons, but everybody is different. So you've got to find out what it is that you want, where you want to go, and what is going to benefit you and your family in the long run. And once you would have determined that, you proceed with caution. When you start to talk about how that home is going to be delivered to you, it's really going to be based on how you and your stakeholders, the contractors, the architect, the banks, how you're going to be able to work together to make sure it happens. If you're working with a real estate agent, whoever you're working with, you're going to have to establish what I call trust relations. Okay? So when we start to look at home ownership, like I said, it's not easy. It requires planning, budgeting, building relationship, and I'm going to keep this in mind. You've got to trust your gut. Trust your gut. And then from there, you can move towards where you want to go. Fair enough? Yeah. Thank you. Any questions?
You got a question right here, front.
Who's that? Go ahead.
you say is the percentage savings for someone who is billing via bank finance or somebody who's paying cash?
Say it again.
What somebody who is billing via bank finance or somebody who is billing cash, what would be the savings in terms of a percentage rate? Because if I'm paying cash to build my house, I know you pay less because the banks kind of mandate, according to their records and their surveyors, how much it's going to cost to build.
That's a good question. I'll tell you why it's a good question. I'm going to segue first and come back to that. Persons will call me and say, Mr. Corley, I want to build a home. And they say, how much do you charge per square footage? You ever heard that before? What's the price per square footage? And I tell them, I don't build per square footage. I can tell you the price per square footage while I would look at the plans and determine what it is you want and everything else. Absolutely, I can determine that. I can't tell you it's going to cost you X, Y, and Z per square footage. She looked at me and she said, what do you mean? Because square footage really determines on what's the cost to build a home. I'll give you an example. If I'm building a home right now, and I'm using 2,000 square foot as a marker, and I'm building a home for 2,000 square foot home, and they just want ceramic tiles, and they want a kitchen with from Iker, and they want standard lighting fixtures, and they want all these different things, right? When I'm finished with that, I'm able to tell you the price per square footage based on what you want. But that same size home can have a 10-foot ceiling, T&G roofing, granite countertops. You start to understand, so the price can't be the same per square footage.
Yeah.
So when you start to, pardon me? But arches and everything else, and then you want interior to look a certain way. So there's a cost associated with that. So when you ask about having cash compared to the bank, now here's, you save on banking fees and everything else, but it doesn't, the contractor doesn't say, oh, you got $1 million cash, I can make it worth your while because it'll be cheaper, because the labor cost doesn't change. Now, the only thing I always tell persons, there's one thing that we can control in the construction industry that makes it a whole lot easier. So I decided to do a construction with you. I can say, I can change the profit I make at the end of the day to help you, right? But having cash doesn't change the cost. Now, the bank has some requirements, but a lot of times when I try to do it, especially with specialty clients, I want to know from a QS's point of view, the quantity surveyor, what's going to cost to really build this? I need to know. Because I need to know the material you want. So I have persons who say, I have a client right now we're working with, but she wants a door. It's a steel door with impact glass. That door is going to cost about $6,000 just one door, right? So how do I give a price without having, you understand me? Right, because this is what she wants, right? So that there's a cost associated with that. That's an acceptable cost. Not only that door, I cannot walk into Kelly's and pick that door. So that door, I'm having to negotiate with a manufacturer to build that 8-foot tall door, 8-foot tall, 8-foot wide, right? That's a steel door. Right? And there's a design associated with it. So I gotta negotiate with that. And then on the back, I'm just giving you an example of how costs can change, right? They want a bifold glass impact door at the back. Which means that when they open the back door, it closes like a closet door. That's a cost associated with that. So you cannot compare the same cost to that.
How can I cut costs when building?
The way I tell clients, well, if they have cash and you want to do this you can do. Okay? You can take the pressure off of me, you know. You can say, I tell the person, okay, because you're so picky, with your lighting fixtures, I'll give you an allowance, you buy your lighting fixtures. Just have it at a certain time.
Okay.
Because you're picky with your kitchen, you know you want to spend in your kitchen. I leave your kitchen to you. Here's your design layout. Here's your budget for what you want. You get your kitchen. Okay? See that you like your tiles a certain way. I'm gonna pick for you. I'm picking, for example, porcelain tiles. I'm saying that's gonna be 18 by 18. You say no, I want my porcelain tiles 24 by 24. I want a certain look, certain way. You deal with that. The pressure's off of me. And so now you can control the cost that you have. So you go and you say, you know something? My bathroom doesn't need to have a full vanity. I can use a pedestal and I can be happy with that. You pick that. Let's say, for example, I give you $600 to get your vanity. You say I'm going to spend $200 on my pedestal. You save money. You see? If that's what's in the budget. You see? So I tell persons all the time, when you start to think, that's why I say planning is so critical, and sitting with your contractor is so critical. But when you start to think about what it's going to take to do what you want, right, it's a different story. And I'll share this last story so you can appreciate how critical it can be. Do not consider purchasing a property and building on that unless you know at the end the cost to do that. I'll tell you why. A lot of times persons buy properties and they never get a full scope of it. They don't know the topology of the land. They don't know the landscape. I've got a client right now we're working with, and when I walk through the property, they want the plans are already drawn for the property on a flat land, right? So you got a plan drawn for property. I walk over the property, clear the property down, and there's a slope exactly where the home's supposed to be built. Because there are some predetermined setbacks. Like from the road, you need 25 feet from the road, you gotta go back before you start. From the east side, you need 8 feet from each side. And so you got a property at a certain size, it has to fit into that side, that property. When we lay it out, the back of the house is down. So now it changes everything. Because I can't build that house right there. You've got to now build that back up. And then there's consideration now. Why would you fill that in? And I'm saying, if I were you, I'll make it in the basement. And that you can use for efficiency or whatever. But I'm just saying, if your plans are drawn, and you got your money from the bank, and you're ready to go, and you get on the property, and there's a problem. Right? Because you cannot build with the budget you have anymore. You may need an additional $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 because the land changes. But you've already got your loan. And the contractor can't do anything about it. Right? He could. If he's a fool, right? He could. And now is even which is even more critical now. I tell you now is that that is real cost. Right? I tell you one client we started to look at earlier this year. And that went up by $480,000. But that's the difference in cost. So that's why I go way back to the same thing. You cannot determine the bill unless you know exactly what you're up against. Find the people to sit and don't just make up your mind without sitting down. And there's some sacrifices obviously you need to make. Right? There's some financial sacrifices that you need to make. And those sacrifices that you make is going to impact the people around you. It's going to impact you. But if you want it, it's a sacrifice that you have to make to get it. When I owned a home, it was the greatest joy I had. Because that's what I wanted. But it took a lot of sacrifices to get it. And today it's still a sacrifice. Because I got to maintain it. Other than that, it's just a wasted investment.
All right.